The elevator ride to the 45th floor took long enough for my ears to pop twice. It was a private lift, smelling faintly of lemon polish and filtered air, a silence so heavy it felt like deep water pressure. When the doors finally slid open, I wasn't stepping into a home. I was stepping into a vault. The foyer was vast, paved in checkerboard marble that reflected the recessed lighting like a frozen lake. To my left, a winding staircase floated upward with no visible supports. To my right, a corridor stretched into darkness, lined with shapes draped in white linen sheets. It didn't smell like a living space. It smelled like a museum after closing time dust, cold wax, and the distinct, dry scent of old canvas. I stepped out, the heels of my boots clicking sharply on the stone. I stopped to wipe them on the mat, a habit from the ranch that felt ridiculous here. 50 stories above the nearest patch of dirt. "Mr. Wright?" The voice came from the top of the stairs. It was cool, low, and perfectly modulated. I looked up. Lilliana Morris stood on the landing, her hand resting lightly on the banister. She was dressed in black silk that seemed to absorb the light around her. She was 39, with a face that wasn't just beautiful, it was curated. Every strand of dark hair was in place. Every angle of her jaw set with a tension that I recognized immediately. It was the look of someone holding a gate closed against a storm. "That's me," I said, taking off my hat. "J. Wright. Sully said you were in a bind." "A bind implies a temporary inconvenience, Mr. Wright," she said, descending the stairs. She moved with a fluid grace, but her grip on the tablet she was holding was white-knuckled. "I am in a standoff. My stepbrother, Elias, has filed a contest to the will. He claims the collection is largely forgery, accumulated by my late husband without due diligence. He wants to force a liquidation sale to settle estate debts. I have 30 days to prove the provenance of every piece in this apartment, or the court freezes the assets." She stopped on the bottom step, assessing me. I knew what she saw. Flannel shirt, denim jacket, boots that had seen actual mud, and hands that were calloused from wire fencing, not turning pages in a library. "Sully speaks highly of you," she said, her tone skeptical. "He says you have an eye. Though he failed to mention, you look like you just walked off a set for a Western." "I run 3,000 acres in Montana, ma'am," I said, keeping my voice level. "Cattle, mostly. But art involves the same principles as livestock. You have to know the bloodline. You have to know where it came from, who handled it, and if it's healthy or sick." "Sick?" "Fakes are sick paintings. They don't breathe right. They try too hard." She stared at me for a long moment, her dark eyes searching mine for a crack in the facade. She didn't find one. "I hope you're right," she whispered, a crack appearing in her own armor. "Because if you're wrong, I lose everything. This apartment, the collection, my independence. I'm expensive, Miss Morris, and I require half the fee up front. I can pay. If the appraisal holds up, good. Because I need the money." I didn't elaborate. I didn't tell her about the letter from the bank in my back pocket, or the fact that a drought had turned my grazing land into a dust bowl. I needed this job to keep my own heritage from being auctioned off. "Where do we start?" She turned toward the hallway. "The main gallery is extensive. But," she paused, looking down at the marble, "the insurance adjuster is coming tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. He's a shark. If he smells weakness, he'll undervalue the policy. And that gives Elias leverage. We need to hit the high-value items first," I said. "Establish a baseline of authenticity before he even opens his briefcase." "The modernists," she said, looking up, a flush rising on her neck. "And the sculptures. My late husband kept his favorites. And the master suite. Then we start with the bedroom art," I said. "Show me." The master suite was an architectural marvel and a logistical nightmare. It was larger than the ground floor of my ranch house, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. But the view was blocked by clutter. It wasn't the hoarding of a poor man. It was the hoarding of a man who thought owning things would fill a hole in his chest. Paintings leaned against the silk wallpaper in stacks. Bronze busts were used as hat racks. Rare first editions were piled on the floor like doorstops. "He didn't believe in curation," Lilliana said, standing in the doorway, her arms crossed tight against her chest. "He believed in accumulation. He bought things because he could." "It's a mess," I said bluntly. "Context matters. A masterpiece leaning against a radiator looks like junk to an adjuster. First thing we do is stage the room. I walked over to a large canvas propped against a velvet armchair. It was a chaotic swirl of black and white, aggressive and brooding. I recognized the hand immediately. I pulled a loop from my pocket and a small, high-intensity UV flashlight. I clicked the light on and leaned in, my nose inches from the canvas. Franz Klein, I said. Late period. Probably late 50s. How can you be sure? There's no signature on the front. Elias says it's a student copy. Doesn't need a signature. Look here. I pointed to a ridge of paint where the black slashed across the white field. Klein used cheap house paint, sapolene usually mixed with artist oils. He liked the resistance. Under UV light, they fluoresce differently. See that dull yellow glow? That's the sapolene. The darker patches are the oil. I straightened up, clicking the light off. It's structural. The cracking pattern implies the layers, dried at different rates over decades. You can't fake that drying process without waiting 40 years. Put a tag on it. Conservatively, 3 million. If we find the gallery invoice, maybe 4. Lilliana stared at me, her mouth slightly open. You did that in 60 seconds? I've been looking at detail my whole life, Miss Morris. You learn to spot the sick ones fast. A fake Klein would look too polished. Too careful. This painting? It's angry. It's messy. It's alive. She blinked, looking at the painting as if seeing it for the first time. I always hated it, she admitted softly. It felt violent. It is violent, I agreed. That's why it's good. I moved to the vanity table. There was a small sculpture there. A figure of a dancer. It was labeled in the inventory list she'd handed me. Degas bronze. Cast 1,920. Value $2.5 million. I didn't just look at it. I touched it. I ran my thumb over the shoulder of the dancer. This is labeled wrong, I said. What? She stepped into the room, anxiety spiking in her voice. It's a Degas. It has the foundry mark. It's not bronze, I said. Feel it. I don't touch the art. Touch it. She hesitated, then reached out. She placed her fingers on the dancer's arm. It's warm, she whispered. Bronze sucks the heat out of you, I explained. It stays cold. This is plaster. Painted to look like bronze. It warms up to your skin. She pulled her hand back as if burned. It's a fake? No. It's a study. Probably from his studio. It's rare. It's historically significant. But financially? It's worth maybe 200,000. Not 2 million. Lilliana closed her eyes. Elias is going to use this. He'll say the inventory is fraudulent. He'll say we're inflating values to hide assets. He'll try, I said, moving the sculpture to a safer spot on the desk. But we'll beat him to it. We recatalog it correctly tonight. We file an amended condition report declaring it as a studio plaster study before the adjuster arrives. Does it make a difference? It makes all the difference. If we file the amendment now, it's a correction. It's professional diligence. If we wait and he finds it, it's a cover-up. You sound like a lawyer. I listen to Sully when he rants. And I know that if you have a weak post, you replace it before the blizzard hits. You don't wait for it to snap. I checked my watch. It was past midnight. I can finish the preliminary sort on this room tonight if you have coffee. Strong coffee. I have an espresso machine in the kitchen, she said, looking exhausted. But I don't know how to use it. Mrs. Higgins usually. Show me, I said. I can fix a tractor engine in a whiteout. I can figure out a coffee maker. We spent the next week in a strange, suspended reality. The apartment became a fortress, and we were the guard holding the line. I worked with a rhythm that defied the chaos. Room by room, wall by wall. I measured, I photographed, I researched Provenance databases on my laptop while eating takeout sandwiches on the floor. I created a digital catalog that was bulletproof, cross-referencing every brushstroke with auction records. But the real work happened in the quiet moments. The moments between the work. One evening, we were in the library. Rain was lashing against the windows, blurring the city lights. I was examining a series of sketches, trying to determine if they were charcoal or Conte crayon. Why do you do this? Lilliana asked. She was sitting in a leather wingback chair, nursing a cup of tea I'd made her. She looked smaller than usual, wrapped in a cashmere shawl. You could be on your ranch. You clearly prefer it. I do, I admitted, setting down my magnifying glass. But the ranch is in trouble. Drought. Feed prices. The bank doesn't care about heritage. They care about liquidity. I need this fee to bridge the gap until spring. So we're both fighting for our homes, she said. Difference is, your home is worth $50 million. Mine is worth dirt and grass. This isn't a home, she said, looking around the opulent room. It's a storage unit. My husband. He bought things to own them, not to love them. He curated his life, and he curated me. I was just another acquisition. The wife. Placed right next to the Picasso. I looked at her. Really looked at her. You're not an object, Lilliana, aren't I? I sit here, guarding his things, terrified I'll lose them, even though I don't even like half of them. Then why fight for them? Because if Elias takes them, he wins. And he's cruel. I felt a surge of protectiveness that had nothing to do with my contract. He won't erase you. Not while I'm on the payroll. The intercom buzzed, shattering the moment. Mr. Vane is here, the doorman's voice crackled. He says he has an emergency injunction. Lilliana went rigid. Send him up. Elias Vane walked in 5 minutes later. He was a man who looked like he'd been manufactured in a boardroom, slick hair, tailored suit, eyes that assessed everything with a cold, predatory gleam. He was followed by a lawyer who looked bored. Lilliana, Vane said, stepping into the library without invitation. Still playing curator? It's my collection, Elias. I'm cataloging it. It's the estate's collection, and I have a court order. He slapped a document on the table, right on top of a delicate sketch. I reached out and moved the paper. Careful, I said. That's a Matisse. Grease stains lower the value. Vane looked at me. He looked at my boots, then my face. And who is this? The mover? I'm the appraiser, I said, stepping between him and Lilliana. I kept my hands loose at my sides, a stance I used when the cattle were restless. J. Wright. Independent authentication. Independent? Vane scoffed. You look like a hired gun. Let me guess, you found a hidden masterpiece in the attic? Something to inflate the value so she can borrow against it? Actually, I said, my voice calm, I found a fake Modigliani in the hallway. Signature was added later. Under magnification, the pigment sits on top of the varnish cracks. It implies the signature was applied at least 20 years after the painting was sealed. Modigliani died in 1920. Vane's eyes flickered. You're lying, he snapped. I'm documenting, I corrected. And right now, I'm documenting that you are trespassing on a site that is under active insurance audit. Regulations state that unauthorized personnel compromise the bond. Unless you want to void the policy on a $50 million estate, which would make you personally liable for any damages, I suggest you step back into the elevator. The lawyer cleared his throat. Mr. Vane, if the policy is voided, Vane turned red. He pointed a finger at Lilliana. You have until the hearing on Friday. If you can't prove title, actual proof of purchase, not just possession, the judge orders a freeze, and I'll sell every scrap of this junk to pay the creditors. He spun around and stormed out. Lilliana sank into the chair, trembling. He's right. I don't have proof of purchase. My husband paid cash. He bought things from private dealers. The receipts, they don't exist. He has hot air, I said, sitting on the edge of the desk. And he's scared. Did you see his eyes when I mentioned the fake Modigliani? Because he knew it was fake, I said. He probably put it there. Or he helped your husband buy it, knowing it was fake, to skim the difference. How do we prove that? We need the source, I said. Lilliana, think. Your husband was a hoarder. Hoarders don't throw things away. Did he keep a ledger? A diary? He kept journals, she whispered, in his study. We need to go in there. She shook her head. I can't. You don't have to go alone. I'll go with you. I'll touch the books. I'll read them. You just have to unlock the door. She looked at me. Why are you doing this, Jay? You could just appraise the art and leave. Because I hate bullies, I said. And I hate seeing something beautiful get torn down for parts. The study was dark, smelling of stale cigar smoke and old secrets. Lilliana stood in the doorway, hugging her shawl tight. I went to the desk. It was a massive mahogany piece, locked. I don't know where it is. I pulled a multi-tool from my belt. Look away if you want to maintain plausible deniability. She didn't look away. She watched as I worked the tension wrench. It took 10 seconds. I opened the drawer. Inside were dozens of leather-bound notebooks, arranged by year. I picked one up. 1,998. I opened it. It wasn't just a list. It was a narrative. Bought the Rothko today. The red acts as a counterpoint to the view. Paid cash. The dealer, Marcus, tried to cheat me on the frame. He wrote everything down, I said, scanning the page. Lilliana, this is better than receipts. This is a contemporaneous record. It proves intent. It proves ownership. If we can match these entries to bank withdrawals or shipping manifests, we have a chain of custody. She walked into the room, stepping carefully on the Persian rug. She touched the spine of a book. He loved these things more than he loved people. Maybe, I said. Or maybe he loved them because they didn't ask anything of him. They just hung there. She looked at me. The room felt small, intimate. The storm outside battered the glass, but inside it was quiet. It gets lonely, I admitted, answering the question she hadn't asked. On the ranch. Especially in winter. The nights are long. You start talking to the walls just to hear a voice. Here too, she whispered. I talked to the paintings. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to brush the dust off her shoulder. But I was the appraiser. She was the client. We need to catalog these, I said. My voice rougher than I intended. Page by page. We need to find the entry for the Modigliani. If Vane was involved, it'll be in here. We worked late every night for the next 3 days. We ordered Thai food and ate on the floor of the study. I learned she hated cilantro. She learned I could recite poetry. We built a case. We found the entry for the Modigliani. Vane says it's authentic. He knows the seller. I don't trust the seller, but I trust Vane. The price is good. There it is, I said. Vane brokered the deal. Is that enough? Not yet. We need to prove Vane knew it was fake. And we need to prove the rest of the collection is yours. I spent the next day on the phone. I called contacts I hadn't spoken to since grad school. I called archivists in Paris. I called a guy in London who specialized in forensic pigment analysis. By Friday, the morning of the hearing, we had it. We were in the kitchen. It was 6 a.m. Lilliana was exhausted, her hair coming loose from its pins, dark circles under her eyes. She looked real. Read this entry, she said, handing me a journal from 2005. I read it. Lilliana looked at the Monet today. She didn't say anything. She just cried. I bought it for her. It's the only time she's looked at me with gratitude. I used the funds from her mother's trust so it would be hers legally. I closed the book. He noticed you. He curated me, she corrected. He bought me a painting because he didn't know how to talk to me. I know you, I said. The words slipped out before I could check them. She went still. Do you? You drink your coffee black because you think milk is childish, but you put 3 sugars in because you need the comfort. You rub your left wrist when you're lying. And you hate this apartment because it feels like a mausoleum, not a home. You walk through it like you're afraid to disturb the dust. She stared at me. Her eyes were wet. And you, she said softly. You pretend to be a simple rancher, but you have a master's in art history, don't you? You know the difference between a serif and a sans serif font on a forgery invoice. You quote Rilke when you think I'm not listening. You're hiding, Jay. Why? We're all hiding, I said. I hide in the dirt. You hide in the clouds. She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were cool. My hand was calloused, rough against hers. I don't want to hide anymore, she said. I looked at our hands. The contrast? The connection? Then let's finish this, I said. Let's win. The hearing was in a sterile conference room at a midtown law firm. Vane was there, looking smug. The mediator, a retired judge named Harrison, sat at the head of the table. Mr. Wright, the mediator said. You have submitted an appraisal? I have, I said, sliding a thick binder across the mahogany table, and a provenance report, corroborated by shipping manifests, gallery invoices we recovered from the archives, and the owner's contemporaneous journals. Vane laughed. Journals? You mean diaries? That's hearsay. I moved to dismiss this entire farce. It's hearsay until it's corroborated, I said, my voice steady. Look at Exhibit B. The mediator flipped the pages. He paused. He adjusted his glasses. This shows a bank transfer matching the journal entry date? Down to the cent, I said, including the shipping insurance. The entry explicitly states the funds came from Liliana's separate inheritance trust. The husband acted as an agent, but the capital was hers. Under New York estate law, that makes the art separate property. It's not part of the estate. It's hers. Vane slammed his hand on the table. That transfer could be for anything. Real estate. Jewelry. This is speculation. Judge, are we really going to let a cowboy dictate probate law? The mediator looked at me over his glasses. Mr. Wright, you are presenting this as definitive proof. Are you testifying under oath that these documents are inextricably linked? Perjury in a probate hearing carries a mandatory minimum. I didn't blink. I am. My analysis is backed by forensic cross-referencing. Vane sneered. Backed by who? You found this guy at a cattle auction. Backed by the Clark Art Institute, I said, my voice quiet but filling the room. I was a Starkman Fellow there for 2 years. Master of Arts in Art History from Yale. My thesis on post-war forgery detection was published in the Burlington magazine. The silence that followed was heavy. Vane blinked, his mouth slightly open. The mediator turned the page to the CV I'd included at the back. I didn't pursue the career, I added. I had a ranch to save. But I know how to read a paper trail. I didn't stop there. I turned to Vane. And about that Modigliani in the hallway, I traced the sale. I slid a second document across the table. That painting was purchased through a shell company called Argent Holdings. We traced the registration of Argent Holdings. It's not registered to the husband. It's registered to an address in the Cayman Islands. Vane crossed his arms. So what? My stepfather used shell companies. He did, I agreed. But he didn't use this one. We pulled the incorporation papers. The registered agent is listed as… Let me see. Yes. A Mr. Thomas Vane. Your cousin? The mediator looked up from the papers, his expression hardening. He pulled a pen from his pocket. Mr. Vane, do you have an immediate explanation for this affiliation? It's a coincidence, Vane stammered, sweat beading on his forehead. My cousin has many business interests. It's a pattern, I said, driving the nail home. You sold a fake painting to your own stepfather's estate. You pocketed the cash, and now you're trying to claim the estate is insolvent based on the devaluation you caused. That is a lie, Vane shouted, standing up. It's a paper trail, I said. And paper doesn't lie. The mediator closed the file with a definitive thud. Mr. Vane, this looks dangerously like fraud and self-dealing. If this goes to probate court, the district attorney will likely be involved. I suggest you withdraw your contest to the will immediately. Vane turned pale. He looked at his lawyer. The lawyer was already packing his briefcase. We're done here, the lawyer said. Liliana stood up. She looked at Vane. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked tired. Get out of my apartment, she said calmly. Get out of my life. We walked back to the apartment in silence. It was snowing, fat flakes settling on the gray slush of the sidewalk. When we got inside, the place felt different, lighter. The dust sheets were still there, but the oppressive weight was gone. You did it, she said, leaning against the foyer table. We did it. You kept the journals. You opened the door. No, you were the key. She walked over to the mantelpiece. She picked up a small brass key. I have a house, she said. Upstate, in the Hudson Valley. It's not a museum. It's a farm. An old dairy farm. It's falling apart. The roof leaks. Sounds like a money pit, I said, smiling. It needs a manager, she said. Someone who knows about foundations and fences. Liliana, I called your bank in Montana, Jay. I froze. My pride spiked, hot and sudden. You what? I didn't pay it off, she said quickly, seeing the look on my face. I stared at her. You own my mortgage? I do. And I'm restructuring the terms. You don't owe me a lump sum. We're going to set up a payment plan based on the ranch's actual yield over 10 years, and I'm offering you a retainer to consult on the Hudson Valley property. The salary from that will cover your payments on the Montana ranch. You keep your land, you keep your dignity. I get a manager I trust. I felt the anger drain away. replaced by a stunned realization. She hadn't bought me. She had bought me time. She had structured a deal where I could work my way out. "You're a shrewd businesswoman," I said slowly. "I learned from the best appraiser in the city." She walked over to me. She placed the brass key in my hand. "I don't want to live in a museum anymore," she whispered. "I want to live somewhere that breathes. Somewhere with a pulse." I looked at the key. It was cold metal, but it warmed quickly in my hand. I looked at her. "Start with the bedroom art," I said, a slow smile spreading across my face. She laughed, a genuine sound that echoed in the empty hall. "What? If we're moving things to the farm, or just clearing this place out, we start packing the bedroom art first. It's the most personal. It's the core. Is that a yes?" I closed my hand over the key. I stepped closer, entering her space, finally breaking the professional boundary I'd held for weeks. "That's a yes, ma'am." I didn't kiss her. Not yet. I just leaned in and smelled her neck. Expensive soap, relief, and the faint, sweet scent of old paper. "But I'm warning you," I murmured against her skin. "I'm going to hang a landscape painting in the kitchen. A real one. No forgeries. Deal."